many of them are there, right? I think Sarah Carter just joined as a speaker. So maybe, Sarah, if you want to chime in on that, that might be a good way to kick you in.
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me on, James, and Project Veritas, another super expose and report that exposes what is happening in our country and particularly with our children. And I think what was so fascinating to me as a mom, and I'm going to come to you from a different perspective, not just as a journalist. I think the work here is stellar because it basically shows the American public what they don't know, what is happening inside the school systems. And I remember, in Virginia during the election for governor in Loudoun County, I had a lot of friends that had their kids in Loudoun County. And I don't know if everybody remembers this, but there were so many issues with CRT, with other issues with the school system. And that was really what propelled parents, whether they were Democrat or Republican, um, to stand up to the school system and to really start taking charge of their students and of their children. And this is what this does for me. When I saw this report, I'm thinking to myself, well, what's really going on in the school? Is her curriculum what they say it is? Do we need to spend more time investigating? And I think that puts the onus on the public as well, to, when we see things like this, to say, well, wait a minute, maybe we need to do a little bit more digging and find out what's happening in our own school systems. And I think that exposés like this do just that. And I have to say, Andy, you've incredible work that you've done as well, in exposing what was happening, for years now with groups. But something like this, James, I think the reason it's so effective is because this does deal with our children. It deals with the fact that our children, they're driving a wedge, I really believe, between parents, just as was stated by this doctor that was exposed. It drove a wedge. Literally, they're trying to, between the parents and students, and between their children. And I think that something like this, I certainly hope that the governor of Georgia takes this seriously enough and a full investigation is launched, and people are exposed and this is shut down.
Yeah, my comment on that is I think that we're trying at Veritas to bring people together with our journalism, and this guy refers to himself as a quote evil salesman. Now, hint, hint. One of the more cinematic things you'll ever see in your life. People always say, "What's next?" I actually spoke to this guy myself, really, and that probably will release tomorrow or Thursday. It's really one of the most extraordinary conversations you'll ever see in your life, because the Orwellian doublethink was on full display, because he kept denying, language has no meaning. But he does say here that he wants to sneak the critical race theory into the classroom, including the kindergartners, by disguising it as something else. He says, quote, "The goal is to get the kids to influence their parents to make the ideological shift too." So I think that we can all agree it's not a good idea to have this horrible influence on children. At least I hope we can. And that's what we're
It's a
trying to
vector.
focus on here.
It's a vector of pushing ideological change. And professors, the ones who teach DEI, CRT, all this stuff, they talk about it. They talk about using kids who are, ones who don't really fit in, and using them because they're very easy to manipulate. Very easy for them. It's very easy for them to find that they want to have a sense of belonging, right? So they get these kids, and then these kids become evangelists, and they push this message on their peers and on their parents. And then, you look at TikTok, right? There's so many videos of people talking about getting their mom to accept their, gender identity or whatever, right? And there are cases where, I mean, in a lot of cases, the parents simply don't accept it, or their siblings don't accept it, and that just leads to the destruction of families. The ones that don't accept this nonsense, and the ones that do, they become evangelists themselves. They're like, well, my child is trans, and I want for my child to live in a world where they feel accepted, and so they too become evangelists.
And while waiting for James to get up, I mean, the work that he's doing and Andy's doing. I know Sarah Carter's done a whole lot of this. Is really critical to help us figure out how to expose the real dangers that come with these efforts. And for me personally, I mean, the public policy should absolutely be, we need to teach kids academic stuff. We don't have to cast the net wide to all these other things that distract children from being able to get to where they need to go. And this lack of focus on academic pursuits is really problematic, especially when you look at what was going on in Virginia recently with certain honors certificates being held back. But anyway, what James is doing is just one of the most fantastic bits of journalism that's taking place out there. And I know that's not to say anything less of what Sarah and Andy and Alex do, but this is really key stuff, and I'm so glad to see what James is able to accomplish here.
If you don't mind, this is Sarah. I just want to chime in really quickly. I totally agree with you, Jim. I think that what James has been uncovering here is really just the tip of the iceberg. I believe this is happening and has happened much more frequently than we can ever imagine. And you're right. You go back, you look at what happened in Virginia just recently. Go back even a little bit further to what I mentioned in Loudoun County, and then the issue of parents. Actually, I remember the whole scandal and all of the reports coming out as parents being marked as domestic terrorists for like speaking out against the school boards. Let's not forget about that, and how some in the DOJ were reflecting on the parents that were standing up and saying, wait a minute, I want to see what my kids are learning. I want to know what's happening in my district with my tax dollars. And so it is not only meant to drive a wedge between the child and the parent, but this type of curriculum very much is political. When you think about it, it has a tendency to be very ideological, and it has that type of ideology is intent on shifting and changing the culture. I believe the American culture, and the ideology being much more Marxist, in my opinion, than anything else when you're dealing with issues of equity principles and all of those issues that are taught with CRT.
And Sarah,
Um,
I was sorry, really quickly, Sarah, just to your point, I love what you just said there about the wedge here between the kids and the parents. There is a part on the video where Dr. Bostic says that the goal of driving CRT and DEI, well, DEI is the made up, hiding term that they're using here, but really
Right.
CRT is to quote get the kids to influence their parents to make the shift too. So now,
Right.
obviously, if they not only do they want to drive this difference between and separate, the kid actually belongs to the community, not to the parents. Now you actually go a step further here, and you actually want the parents to join in the community, right? The community that they envision is the right community, right? The community of thought that they have. So if
yep.
anyone wants to comment on that, that would be great.
Yeah, I do. I do. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying, right? This is about driving wedges. It's about, dividing families or turning them into evangelists, right? And the parents become evangelists because they want their kids to live in a world that seems fair and equitable or inclusive. I think that's the term they use, inclusive, to their lifestyle, to their, this nonsense. And more so than that, I mean, I don't think, I mean, you don't even need to say that it's of your opinion, right, Sarah? Because like they openly state that, like this was what Black Lives Matter
Right.
stated on its own website, that its purpose was to dismantle Western civilization, to dismantle, the patriarchy or the kyriarchy or Western traditional values, because they consider that to be oppressive. They don't explain exactly how it's oppressive. They just say that it's inequitable and that through DEI or CRT, they're able to achieve this utopian vision, which, I mean, to any sane human being, you're going to look at it and think, that's dystopian. That is messed up. That is not civilization. And we're seeing the effects of it right now, where kids are being openly racist to each other, right? To white kids in particular, and to Asian kids, telling them that, you're oppressors. So we can do whatever it is we want. We can say whatever we want. and you can't fight back because that would be racist, because you are historical oppressors, and we're simply, reclaiming our humanity by being inhuman. And it's mind-boggling that this stuff is, it's sold in such a way that it seems like it's a good thing, right? A lot of people sign on with
Right.
it. A lot of corporations, they give money to these organizations, millions of dollars, possibly even more, to these organizations. And I'm not talking like George Soros, right? I mean, he knows what he's doing. I'm talking like regular corporations. Target will sponsor drag events or CRT events, and companies will have these seminars, and they'll hire these Ibram Kendi style people. It's like a whole cottage industry of these guys to teach workers, as well as their families, even in some cases, on how to accept this sort of new paradigm, this new ideology, if you will. It's insane.
Right. Well, thank you. This is James O'Keefe again here. Just want to point out that the video is going viral right now. There is a law in the state of Georgia that makes this unlawful, and we printed out the statute here, or the resolution of the State Board of Education. It was the Fulton County School Board meeting. Well, thank you. HB 1084. Just want to point out that legislation making this prohibited. I'm just going to read it out loud so you understand. There is a law in the state of Georgia is unlawful. That makes this unlawful. He says no federal grant shall be applied or federal funding accepted if such grant or funding requires or encourages teaching of concepts or implementation of the practices of critical race theory, or if such grant or funding requires or encourages training teachers in such concept or practices. This guy admits to us on this tape he's got private companies, he's selling this curriculum, and he says he's going to be, quote, nailed by the governor if anybody finds out. I also wanted to say another thing to all of you. We've got about 3,000 people. Again, this is the first time I've ever done this like this. So I just wanted to say that Project Veritas, someone commented on Twitter, how does Project Veritas get these people to say these things so openly? I mean, listen to this. It's almost like a Saturday Night Live sketch of what you might think they would say, as the proverbial fly on the wall. And here's what I have to say to that. It's a ton of work, money, and time for our investigative journalists to do this. I mean, they're out in the field for months. And, we're a nonprofit organization. We take no advertising money. Nobody controls us. Nobody tells us what to do. The media obviously doesn't operate that way. Brought to you by Pfizer. Brought to you by Pfizer. This isn't brought to you by any corporate interest that dictates our agenda. So we are a nonprofit organization, and we are run by donations. I just wanted to let you know, and the brave journalist who did that, who is unnamed, although you can hear his voice as he's recording. You can see the lips moving of this guy, Quentin. Another thing we do at Project Veritas is we don't report anonymous claims. You can see their face when they're making the claim. So I would just encourage you to donate, even if it's $10 or $100. If you appreciate this sort of journalism, we certainly don't put it behind a paywall, and we don't yet have subscribers. So I just want to say that we're a nonprofit organization. We have a lot of legal bills. People are trying to take us down, and we could use your donations. It's projectveritas.com, projectveritas.com/donate to help us continue this type of work. Eric and Mario, who else should we throw to here in the Twitter Spaces?
Okay, James. So we got a couple more people on. I know Viva just jumped in, and then I'm also working on, if you guys remember, our Hasbro whistleblower David Johnson.
Let's first go to Viva Frey. I'd like his legal perspective on this guy admitting to circumventing the law, which is a state board of education. Then we'll go to David Johnson, one of our whistleblowers from Hasbro. Viva, are you there?
Yeah, James, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Well, look, I just tuned in to listen now, so I don't know that I necessarily have any commentary on the actual content of this, other than to say you're doing the Lord's work in terms of actual journalism, and I came to learn and not necessarily to commentate. So I'm sitting here, I'm listening. It's amazing. I'm sharing it around on our locals community so people come in here and listen. But what's going on in Loudoun is nuts. The information comes out sure as sugar over time. And you learn that not only were bad things happening, people knew about the bad things that were happening. People tried to cover up the bad things that were happening. And then when the bad things that were happening that they tried to cover up came out, everyone tries to plead ignorance. But no, other than that, no commentary just yet.
Well, I would say one thing for you to process as you take a look at this video and evaluate the laws in Georgia is it's very rare that you get one of these PhD guys, doctor. This guy's a PhD. He's project manager of a large nonprofit with a $15 million budget, educator in Georgia. Is you very rarely get them on tape saying, "I am breaking the law." That's what this guy says. He says, I am an evil salesman and I'm doing this. And if the attorney general, governor found out, I would be, quote, nailed. It's very rare, Viva, that we get sort of people dead to rights like this. So the question now is, and I think the question, I'm speaking on behalf of thousands of people here, maybe even 1 million people, is what's going to happen to this guy? And I don't know, Viva, you do a pretty good job of getting into the weeds on prosecutorial discretion and the laws here. Is anything going to happen to this guy? This is a Republican administration in Georgia, but the county district attorney might have jurisdiction. That's Fulton County, Georgia, and the other county is Cobb County, Georgia. So it's just an open question there. It's a legal question because I think everyone craves accountability in this country.
Well, I'm going to do what bad lawyers do. I'm going to punt it because I don't have enough information to even offer an assessment yet. I'm going to listen. I'm going to look into it. But James, I want to flip the question on you. Set aside my Quebec attorney legal opinion on all this, which I have none except for what I already believe. My question to you is, how do you get the people in to do this? How do you get the people to sit down and open up and be honest in a setting where they think they're comfortable to release the dirty details?
Well, I'm speaking on behalf of my journalist team because they've given me that responsibility. I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but I'm actually sitting in the room. I'm on audio now only, but the journalist who did the story is actually smiling like a Cheshire cat right now. He's looking at me, giving me a little fist bump, but he's not going to say anything because he's still undercover in in all different various contexts, and I don't want to compromise his likeness so that he can get more information. I think it's about building a rapport with people and getting them to being likable. I think it's about making it not about you when you're speaking to a subject. In other words, you're focusing on them and you're showing them that you're interested in them as a person. And in politics today, everyone's sort of like a narcissist. They talk about themselves a lot. I think in journalism, I think most journalists are probably narcissists. But
Nowadays,
our
yeah.
journalists are not. Our journalists don't have bylines. Our journalists don't see their faces. Our journalists are selfless. Our journalists spend many nights in hotel rooms all alone. They spend many months trying to corroborate the information. So I think there's a manual that we give out, a training manual, where you really have to focus on also looking all around you, being interested in people, looking for corruption all around you, keeping your wits about you. Many people think, oh, you meet all these people on a dating app. No, I mean, many of these people we meet like at a train station. One of these education subjects we met in an airport, in an airplane TSA line. So, some of South by Southwest, et cetera. So I think there's a lot to say, but I think the primary method is to express interest in other people and listen to what they have to say. And you'd be amazed at what people will tell you when you do that. I think I summarized it. My undercover journalist is giving me a thumbs up here, so I just speak on his behalf. And there's many other techniques, but that's the bottom line there.
Yeah.
Why don't we go to, and Viva, I look forward to, I'll send you, I think Eric and Mario, we should tweet out screenshots of these laws in Georgia so that our
Yep.
audience can have them, and maybe tag Viva in the tweet so he's got a copy of that, even though he's a Quebec lawyer.
Absolutely.
I mean, hell, Viva, you're better than most American lawyers as far as
Well,
I'm concerned. I don't have a lot of good experience with lawyers, so
I'm good with stuff. I think I said Loudon instead of Fulton, but the bottom line, I don't know the details of this yet.
well,
but
we'll give you the details. We'll
Okay.
post some screenshots of the Georgia board resolution, the Fulton County School Board meeting, because we're trying to understand it ourselves here. This is Bill 1084 as passed House and Senate. So we'll post all the stuff, email it to you. Okay, let's go to one of our whistleblowers. I'd love to hear a take from David Johnson. Are you there? David Johnson, are you there?
He's a speaker. I think he's muted now.
Yeah.
Okay,
At
David
the
Johnson,
bottom
if you could
left.
unmute yourself. There's a little unmute button there.
Yeah, and for
Yeah, where it
those
says
that
mic is off.
that are unfamiliar with David, while he's getting his mic situated, he was our Hasbro insider. You know, back in July of 2021, he came forward from the toy manufacturer Hasbro. They had partnered with the Conscious Kids, and they were pushing critical race theory as an acceptable mindset amongst not only employees, but they were incorporating it into their toys. And David was a packaging engineer there. And he came forward to us to really kind of expose all of that initially with the CRT going on with children's toys. So if you haven't seen that story yet, I encourage everybody to go. You can check it out on projectveritas.com. But if you just search, Hasbro, David Johnson, you'll see quite a bit of information.
It's kind of crazy, right? I mean, to think about, to even talk about the idea that they're pushing a political ideology through children's toys. I mean, if you told me that 15 years ago, I'd say you're crazy. But now it's happening. We have proof. And I feel like the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about it because they're part of it, you know?
Well, the mainstream media is less exciting than Project Veritas, obviously, because it's more thrilling and exhilarating to see their faces and watch their behavior. Okay, Eric and Mario, who else? I want to.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think Scott Pressler just joined, and I think he's. If you would like to speak a few words on this latest video, it'd be great. Scott's on. I don't know if Scott Pressler can hear us. Yeah, he's
Did you
also
invite him?
muted. Yeah, he's as a speaker here. I
Oh,
think
okay.
he's also muted, as well as David is also muted. Okay, we'll wait on them to join here in a bit. So my question here for the audience, or for the people who are speakers, is I don't know how familiar you guys are with Georgia specifically, if this is an issue that's ongoing. I know, for example, that critical race theory has been debated frequently in the House and the Senate there in Georgia. Obviously, given the fact that critical race theory is banned in the state. Now that we know that Governor Kemp was mentioned by name, apparently his wife, according to Dr. Bostic, is involved in education, and he fears, quote, that he would get nailed if they found out. What does anyone, potentially know or think, that not only his employer teaching lab, but the government of Georgia can do to enforce its existing rules on critical race theory?
Well, I'll tell you what.
Okay.
I'm James and it's Jim Paff. Just glad to be here with you. I have to say that what is so amazing about what Project Veritas is able to do, and the brilliant methods that you've brought to bear to get to this information. I mean, it just helps parents and people that are really concerned to be able to know where the problems are. And your job is to be a journalist. I do the political thing often, but I just think it's really important that parents and concerned people, really take in the information you're bringing out, study it, and look at it closely. And they just need to take that information to the people who can do something about it. It's often elected officials, but it's just they're going to their schools and expressing concern. And the more you do that, really good things can happen. I think the important thing about what Project Veritas gets done is you just do the tools using some of the most fantastic journalistic methods available to be able to give people an understanding of what's really going on. We really just don't have enough of that in this country. And you're amongst the very few, maybe near almost. I mean, you and Andy I know does some amazing things too. But I think what you've been able to bring to bear here, people need to understand what's happening. So people in Georgia need to look very closely at this information, watch the video, listen and follow the things that you're putting out so that they can have the tools they need when they go and talk to people who could do something to change this.
Yeah, and Jim, send it to the governor's office. So he says he's going to be nailed by the governor. What does the governor think? Send it to the Attorney General, send it to the DA. There's 3,000 people on this call right now. What I would ask you, people say, well, there's 3,600 people on this call. So I would ask you guys, if you're listening to me, please email this video to the elected officials there, Fulton County DA, school board officials, the governor's office. Email the video and say, what are you doing with this information? Okay, by the way, our videos just crossed 250,000 views in about 90 minutes, which is really great. So good to be back on Twitter, by the way. This is our was our first video after I think it's our first bombshell after back on Twitter, because we got after the butt plug guy. That was afterwards. So I'm
The butt
back
plug
on,
guy.
but
Love
I
it.
call him the butt plug dean. The New York Magazine doesn't refer to him as butt plug. They refer to him as sex education guy, right? They call it sex education, which is really the problem in journalism
Yep.
media these days, is that they
Doublespeak.
use hyperbole, they use obfuscation, they change the words. We all know they do this, but it's interesting to point out how they do it. They refuse to say the words butt plug. They said that I was attacking a sex education guy. First of all, I'm not in the attack business. I quote people. We quote people for a living. There's a difference between attacking someone and quoting them. Reporters quote people. Politicians attack people. So we quoted this guy, and he said that he gives out butt plugs to underage girls, and the New York Magazine reporter said that we were doing a story on a sex education. We don't do sex education stories at Project Veritas. That's not our beat. But if you're breaking the law, or you're sodomizing underage girls and things of that nature, then that's newsworthy. That's interesting to us. So the video is at 250,000 views, and I appreciate all of you for getting the message out. We have another about 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Mario, who's next?
Tiffany, I think you're on. I was speaking with Tiffany earlier. She is the co-founder of Moms for Liberty. So Tiffany, if you just want to, share us your thoughts as a mother and, as a founder of this group, what is it that you take from this, and, of all this stuff that's happening, I guess, in the classrooms in America these days?
Yeah, we're incredibly thankful for Project Veritas for bringing this stuff to light and really getting it out into the mainstream, because a lot of you have said the mainstream media is ignoring this, but American parents on the ground are feeling it very directly. So we started this organization in 2021, January. I'm a mom of 4. I was a school board member. I saw this very directly in my district. And parents every day are dealing with this, where their children are there's a wedge being driven between the parent and the child. James Lindsay talks often about the fact that this is the building of the Red Guard in America. And we need to take it very, very seriously. They put a hook in the child's heart and lead their head where they want the head to go, and they cash in on the inherent empathy of children. So this gentleman talks about kindergarten. That should be shocking to everyone in America, that children are being divided in kindergarten, but we're feeling it and seeing it. This work, the CRT, by the fruits of what it shows in the family. We had a family in Williamson County, Tennessee, a biracial child who didn't want anyone to know that their dad was white, because white people were bad. And, we're coming off of Martin Luther King Day. This is not the future that American parents want for their children to be divided. So thank you for showing this and being so bold and brave. And we will do everything we can at Moms for Liberty to spread this information.
That's really what we would ask you to do. People say, how can I help? I mean, the number one thing you guys can do to help is spread this around, right? I mean, it's this guy. This is accountability, and people say, what matters anymore? I mean, having the guy on tape. And I'm just going to read these quotes again for those of you who've joined us. Some people are visual learners, some of them are audio learners. Quote: I would get nailed if anybody found out. That's how you get away with it. There's a subtle way of teaching. In order to disguise this as not as CRT but as DEI, if you change what you refer to it as, then you can do it. This is what this guy is saying. By the way, some of these stories are all, it's about the lying. Quote: I would say I'm a good salesman, but I'm also an evil salesman. If you don't say the words critical race theory, you can technically still do it. The Georgia state government has no clue what is in my curriculum. And I'm like, this is great. This is good. He smiles with a huge grin on his face. Governor Kemp is, I'm quoting him now, Governor Kemp is such an idiot. Like, his wife does a lot of stuff on education here in Georgia. I would get nailed if Governor Kemp's wife found out. Now, Governor Kemp's wife, for those of you who don't know, is a school educator. She's an educator. If they come and take my business license, I can keep consulting. The goal is to, quote, get the kids to influence their parents to make the ideological shift too. So there he says it. This is Dr. Bostic saying that the goal is for the kids to change their parents' views.
That's Mao, James. That's Mao. That's the building of the Red Guard. They used the children to convert the parents.
I don't disagree with that. It's one of the scarier things in my career to see the sort of, I don't know what to call it. It's almost irrationality that the substance of what you're doing uh, changes if you change what words you use to refer to it. And this guy's definitely, we know he's got a dissertation in critical race theory. We also understand about Dr. Bostic that he's a deconstructionist. So he's an expert in deconstruction theory, and his dissertation was actually banned. So that's kind of evil. I always
It's
felt that the Orwellian doublethink was evil.
it's what Yuri Bezmenov would call language pollution. They take one word and everybody knows what that word means, and they change the meaning of it. Or if a word is dirty, right, a word that everybody's aware of, like CRT, and they disguise it as something else. So suddenly, they try to gaslight you, right? If you say CRT is bad, this is CRT, they'll be like, no, this is DEI. You're being hysterical.
And Ian, that's a great point. You actually just brought up Yuri Bezmenov. I was speaking with James just yesterday about Yuri, the KGB defector. To your point there, Tiffany, as well. He also says in an interesting ways that a person like Dr. Quentin Bostic, he obviously comes off as he believes in this neo-Marxist ideology, right, where everything is relative, and he believes also that he potentially has this massive influence, that he's going to be part of this new society, right, when it comes to fruition. The interesting thing is, as Yuri Bezmenov said, is the head of the Marxist movement, for example, at the time, the KGB, they kept lists of the communist allies that they had around the world that were helping them spread the revolution. But just at the point when the revolution was successful in that specific location, the KGB's first move in that new country was to get rid of every single communist ally there, for the simple fact that they knew too much. They knew too much of the revolution. They did too much to do the Cultural Revolution. And they not only are they not necessary, they actually are a danger to the new society because they know too much and they're a risk to the powers that come into it. So it's
Which is really
so
interesting, Mario. Mario and I had this conversation together on the phone when this tape came out, and again, you guys ain't seen nothing yet, because what we have coming out tomorrow, possibly Thursday, is what we have coming out is unbelievable. The conversation between me and this guy is truly unbelievable, because you'll see evil, what he means when he says, I'm an evil salesman. But Mario, it's like, it's this whole idea that words don't have meaning.
yeah.
And it's quite ironic we're talking about in the context of education. By the way, for those of you who don't follow Project Veritas litigation, the New York Times made this argument in the New York State Court of Appeals that words don't have meaning. The New York Times. So isn't it funny that our newspapers and our schools are telling us that words don't have meaning?
Yep.
Those are the
Exactly.
last institutions you'd think would say that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It goes to show, James, just how far this cultural revolution that some of the people like Quentin Bostic have really pushed in our society. It's their willpower is truly incredible. And I see here that Emerald Robinson just joined. If you want to chime in a little bit, up to you. I see that you're on, but I think this is a very important discussion to have about our society as a whole, especially where education is really where it all starts. Why is our media corrupt? Why are different aspects of our society corrupt? Well, it starts in education, right? So it's really there that Project Veritas is focusing on now.
Well, it shows you how they played the long game, right? While no one was really paying attention. And if anything positive came out of COVID, it was that parents became aware. And while I've been listening in as I can, I'm getting my own kids ready for bed right now. But I've already had, some very influential people from Georgia ping me during this. I'd flagged it for them. And a couple people have already sent it to Burt Jones asking, what is going on? How can this be happening? So this report, as often your alls do, is already making an impact and a difference. And I think by tomorrow we will see some of the scrambling with Georgia officials, even though Brian Kemp is over at the World Economic Forum. He's having a hard time with that right now. He's getting a lot of pressure from constituents and personal friends for being there, and this will only add pressure. So I think you'll probably see a difference. But, it's not, as you've exposed with some of the other states, it's not just the public education system. There are people who have been flabbergasted to find out they're paying exorbitant amounts of money for what is supposed to be the top-notch school there, only for their kids to be indoctrinated. And I had a friend the other day just say, my daughter looked at me and said, "My body, my choice." And she's 13 years old, and she's at this very expensive, elite school. And her mom was just like, "Where on earth did you get that?" And so it's just, you have to be vigilant, and reports like yours is so important for parents.
Hey, Mario, if I could chime in here, and
Yeah,
if anyone wants to respond to this, Robinson or anyone, you mentioned Yuri Bezmenov. How to pronounce his last name?
Yuri Bezmenov.
Yuri
Bezmenov.
Bezmenov. Was
You're
that the one who
Bezmenov,
said
yep.
their useful idiots would be the ones killed in the communist?
Lenin said that. That was a
Lenin.
Lenin quote. Lenin
So
said
what
that.
do we think?
Yeah.
I mean, so much of our journalism, reason why I think people love our work is that it results in reactions from the institutions. And what do you think the reaction is going to be from this guy's network of bad actors to his admissions and his honesty?
I think they might disown him because
Disown him.
he said the quiet part out loud. Yeah, they'll unperson him, pretend that he's not one of them, that he's dishonest, he's a dishonest broker just trying to make a buck, right? And that they're the virtuous ones. I think they'll find a way to just simply, sweep him under the carpet. They'll pretend that he just doesn't represent them, that they only want, equitability and social justice. But behind the scenes, he'll be consoling him, of course. These
Right.
people are two-faced. I've been on that side, right? And he has breached what he has done is a cardinal sin. He has told the world what they're doing, his secrets, right? Their secrets. They don't
Well,
like that.
well, look at this. And to your point, you're absolutely right. Because if you look at the other teacher we exposed a few years ago, Gabriel Geip from California, he was fired, right? That was the guy who said he had 180 days to turn his students into revolutionaries. He wanted
Yep.
to scare the F out of his students. He had pictures of Mao in his classroom, right?
And they allowed it, right?
They allowed it
Until people found out about it and
until
people started talking about it, and
until
then
Project
they fired him.
Veritas.
And you know how hard it is to fire a teacher in California? It's insanely
Well,
hard. But he
Well,
managed to do
and
it.
Geip ended up getting $190,000 from Natomas school district. I think that's the other amazing thing. He actually got 3 times his yearly salary to go away quietly and to not fight it. So I just find that fascinating that these people can go right back into society, and who knows where he's at today. We should probably follow up on
well, and
that.
what's amazing about the work your journalist has done, James, is he is showing how these people are so intent upon pushing their agenda that they're willing to subvert democratic institutions to get it done. I mean, it's such a rank and purposeful undermining of what every American knows they have a right of, and that is the security of their vote, to be able to say who's going to represent us and to do the things that they ask them to do. And these people are intent upon saying that doesn't matter to us. We're going to indoctrinate your kids. We're going to do what we want to do and accomplish it the way we want to. I think that's
The question is, in our society, do we want to live in that world? I think probably the vast majority of people don't. I still believe, like with Gabriel Geip, we saw Republicans and Democrat parents stand up, many of them not conservative, and just upset. This guy said he wanted to FUCK with their children. That's what the guy said. He said, I wanted, to send them to Antifa rallies. But I think what Ian said about this guy saying the quiet, Ian Miles Strong, do you, when you were part of this group of people, I mean, so he's saying the quiet part out loud. They're going to unperson him. They're going to disown him. Um, but it's very rare that we get to see this
Oh
on
yeah.
video, isn't it?
People disappear, right? I mean, they don't disappear like literally. They just drop out of the public eye, right? Because they're told to keep their heads down. They may keep their jobs, they may keep their social relationships, but they're not really allowed to speak up, because the instant they speak up, they're going to start leaning on them. Because I think what they realize is that people who have been canceled by the left have a predisposition to being, absorbed into the center or into the right. we see a lot of that, right? Like with me, for instance, when I was canceled, they tried to shut me up, right? They were like, Ian, this is a bad look. Just keep your head down. Like essentially telling me that I would be professionally disbarred, like prevented from having any future work really anywhere if I didn't shut up, right? That was the plan. I was like, no, I'm not going to shut up, and you guys telling me to shut up is just making me want to speak out more, reach out more to the other side, and that caused them to like really cancel me. So I mean, I went full bore, right? I came out as a right winger, I suppose. But they don't want that to happen, so they'll try to shut him up, and they'll try to keep the peace with him. But at the same time, he'll always feel that threat that he could be seriously canceled, because the thing about these guys is they keep notes on each other, right? Like any simple infraction, you made a bad joke once, you did something sexist or whatever, they keep notes on you. So you tend not to want to step out of line because you know what they have on you. And just like he probably has dirt on them, so they don't want that getting out
It
either.
is an interesting tell though that he took down his Twitter account. He
Yep.
locked that up. It's always interesting to tell. That's the thing that's so outside of their actions. Like this guy's going to stand behind what he said. He's going to say, "Oh, I believe everything I said is right," all so forth and so on. And then they take down their Twitter account. We saw that with the
Yeah,
Bernie Sanders staffers that we
James,
exposed.
I know Andy wants to chime in here. I was actually talking with Andy about this story yesterday while Quentin was actively taking down his social media. So I know Andy, you want to chime in, and then we do have David Johnson in the chat. I believe his mic is good to go now. So Andy,
Yes, it
go ahead.
is.
Andy, go ahead, and then we'll follow up with David Johnson and get his take as the Hasbro CRT insider.
Thank you. This is Andy Ngo speaking. I have a response to a view that has been shared. I do not think that this individual will face any career, professional, social consequences for his exposure in this video. We see over and over, in fact, there's quite often, what usually happens is that there's a rallying effect that happens when people on the left are exposed for their radicalism. They are not treated as pariahs. People come out in support. You can think of the egregious example of the teacher in California last year, Gabriel, who you just discussed a moment ago. There was a lot of support for him, despite him admitting on camera, basically psychologically abusing his students and radicalizing them into very militant political ideologies. When people in public positions get exposed for having alternate personalities online where they express, let's say, a desire for law enforcement to be killed or property to be set on fire at riots, these people face no censure. So I don't think that Quentin's peers and colleagues will disavow him at all. In fact, they're going to go on the offensive. You can expect that the narrative they're going to run with is that this investigation is a racist attack on a black man, on a black gay man, and that critical race theory and diversity ideology is about teaching people to better understand racism. That's how they gaslight us.
Yeah, no, that's I hear that point for sure.
All right, guys, I'm going to end this stream. We're going to jump over to the regular show. I appreciate y'all jumping in. We'll see you on the other side.
What he did, which was very courageous, but he was a whistleblower who worked with Hasbro, and he saw this CRT training, and guess what? They were trying to influence toys that was going to 1, 2, 3-year-old children, because according to Conscious Kid, was brought in by Hasbro to train them on CRT. Even 2 to 3-year-olds can be racist. And
they're already doing this with Dungeons and Dragons. But Hasbro owns Dungeons and Dragons, and they're actually doing that right now. They're using their and the thing, it has to be CRT related. You can't have players, poisoning their minds with like this base stuff. It has to be both.
Right.
Not those rules, obviously. But
yeah, of course. And the thing is, Quentin Bostic himself said that his program, his curriculum, is going to kindergartners. So what you're seeing here is not only that they have to indoctrinate people with their ideology,